Hello, everybody. So one of the things I run into with churches pretty frequently is that big question of how do we even get started in digital ministry or online church or things like that. And the book that I constantly end up recommending is one that goes back about 8 years now, and it's Justin Wise's The Social Church. And the full title of that is The Social Church, A Theology of Digital Communication. Now, I want to give you guys my top 5 takeaways that I got from reading this book all those years back, and the ones that have really impacted me the most and made the most difference in the churches that I work with. So one of the first takeaways that we have from Justin Wise's book is that God has gifted every church with a unique niche, or as he calls them, a big idea. Now, don't confuse this with a big idea in the preaching sense, but what he's talking about here with a big idea is, if your church, you go out there and you find out that you and most of your congregation are all, hang out at the gym, that's probably something that's a bit God ordained. Or say maybe like a third of your church are all surfers. Maybe that's a sign, and maybe that's a sign that you should double down on trying to reach out to that group of people, because you've been uniquely gifted by God to reach out to those people. And maybe that means that the way that you communicate should take into account surfers or gym rats or whatever group it might be that you already kind of see. And, obviously you should take time to pray through this and use your discernment. But there's a lot of churches out there that I run into them. You walk into the congregation, you find out that they all have a large percentage of the congregation might have this commonality, and it's not something you might expect. And that often means that is an opportunity to kind of get started down digital ministry, because it allows you to communicate a little bit easier what's unique about your church, what's different. Who are you guys out to reach out to? If somebody new comes in and everybody's used to working out and going to the gym and things like that, it's very easy and natural for them to say, "Hey, I go to the gym on Wednesdays. You need a spotter." These kinds of things happen. Number 2 takeaway is that culture has shifted from broadcast to new media, and you're experiencing that right now, right? This is not a broadcast medium. I'm not here broadcasting like on traditional TV or newspaper that's one directional. There's a comment section. You can say whatever you want. You can make replies to this video with your own videos. So there's ways to interact back and forth. So everybody is a creator of media and consumer of media, not just a consumer. And what this means is we have to be more interactive in how we engage with people as churches, right? Or as ministers. That can be in your sermons. You can actually have people posting things or replying to surveys or sending in questions, or even just asking them and saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?" And let people kind of shout back. I know some congregations and traditions are a little better about that than others, but that's an opportunity for you. Third, churches need to be able to share the same timeless message. Message doesn't change, but via modern mediums, right? And so what I would say here is you need to be able to couch that message of, Christ and dying for your sins and the entire gospel message. You need to be able to package that in a way that makes sense through online mediums, whether that's social media, whether that's TikTok, whether that's YouTube, whether that's your church website. It needs to kind of be able to make sense in that medium. So if that's doing it on YouTube, probably going to be a talking head, kind of like we're doing here. Probably not your live stream. Your live stream, I've talked about this before, it doesn't really fit the medium, right? It's not ideal. Would it fit in a TikTok? Probably not. Would it fit on Instagram? No, definitely wouldn't. Does it fit that well on YouTube? Not really. Facebook, also no. So trying to put together your content in a way that works with the context of social media. Number 4, generations that aren't digital natives need to be humble and willing to adapt for subsequent generations. Now, this is where I struggle a little bit because I'm actually at the tail end of Gen X. I'm at that age, right, where we were, and the way you describe a digital immigrant is someone that we played with our toys didn't play with us. Whereas the digital natives, they were very adept at using technology right from the get-go. So, you know, if you'll see it today with kids, they'll pick up an iPad, they know exactly what to do. You know, you give an iPad to a 70-year-old, they may or may not know what to do. Now, we just need to be, as the older generations, those of us that are in X, the boomers, and we've still got some builders out there, we need to be willing to adopt some of these digital trends ourselves in order to be able to reach out to these people that are in the later generations, millennials, Gen Z, these groups. We need to be ready and willing to adopt technology to interact with them. So that means you might need to kill the bulletin, the printed paper bulletin, and go entirely to putting up what would have been on the bulletin on the website. Maybe that means that previously you were doing like the member profile in like a newsletter or something. Maybe it goes to a podcast instead. And what this means is those of us that are older, we have to have that humility and say, okay, how do I now connect to the podcast, to watch the podcast, to, you know, find out what I used to find out in the newsletter. And we just have to be willing and ready to do that, because that's how we engage these subsequent generations and how we pass on our faith. The number 5 thing is that churches need to be more daring when it comes to embracing new technology trends. Now, I'm not saying you have to like go out and, you know, get a virtual reality headset. In fact, I've got one back over here on this side to go join like the metaverse and do all your church in the VR headset or something like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. You don't need to change everything. Like I said, there's a timeless message. You're not going to change that. You know, you're not going to stop meeting on Sundays. That's pretty timeless. We're still going to be doing that. But should you maybe, instead of sharing your devotions on a newsletter or in an email, maybe you start putting them on TikTok, or also put them on TikTok, or also put them on Instagram or something like that? Absolutely. There's no reason that you shouldn't. You should go ahead and repackage that stuff that you were doing before in places where you're going to engage those other generations that are digital natives and are ready to engage back and forth with you. And one key thing that you should do as you pick up these newer digital trends and you get into social media and stuff, don't treat it like broadcast. You know, we talked a little earlier about broadcast media and how that's kind of dying. Treat it as a conversation that it's social media. That means you need to be social. That means you need to have a back and forth, and you need to be willing to have people comment on your videos or on your posts or things like that. And you need to be ready and willing to post back and engage them that way. All right. So those are the 5 key takeaways that I had from reading Justin Wise's, The Social Church. If you've read it and you have takeaways, pop them in below. If you're a church or a minister that's currently doing one of these things and doing it especially well, pop it in below as well. Tell us what you're up to and what's working and how well it's working. Anyhow, that's it for me this week. I hope you guys have had a great week as well, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Also, you know, you should click one of these other things here that I've got going, and, you know, like and subscribe down below, because that also helps.